It's a wonderfully curated panel, and we are discussing a very wonderful topic today, which is about shaping the future of OT security, exploring the top trends and in the industries. And I have some of the best minds over here to share their thoughts on this wonderful topic. OT, as we all know, has been in existence for almost decades, but the focus on OT security has shifted quite recently. So I would first want to try and explore that what are the emerging security threats that people are experiencing in the OT segment. And since OT is very business specific, custom kind of a application, I would want each of my panelists over here to kindly share the recent trends or the threat landscape that you're seeing that is emerging around OT. And I'll start first with you, Vimal, if you can share your thoughts on the subject.
Thank you, Alok, and a very good morning to all of you. Very interesting topic of the day, OT security. In fact, every organization, especially people in the manufacturing industry, whether discrete industry or processing industry, they are completely puzzled by this. And there is a reason. I always say IT security solutions have been in existence for almost 40 plus years now. First antivirus, I think, came somewhere in 70s or 80s. But OT security solutions, still, there are not that many available in the market. Second thing is this sensitization has started in the last few years only. Challenge which all we have seen, though we are a new age refinery, we started construction in 2008 and we completed refinery in 2012 when it went into operations. But even that point of time, if you ask me, there was no focus on OT security. The priority of a project guy is to set up the unit and make it operational at whatever configuration it comes, and that is a win for them. It is only much later than IT guys get into this and they start talking about that there is a serious problem with your setup. I mean, we have seen those kind of machines where USB dongles, because the licenser's license is coming on a dongle, it is plugged into USB. That means anybody can actually plug in any USB and do play havoc with that machine. Standard IP address, first of all, the equipment is D-Link and Netgear kind of equipment. I'm not saying those equipments are bad, but no hardening, standard 192.168.0.1, standard IP, this thing. No VLANing, administrative password as it comes from the box. So the point is, we have been having that kind of system. Only good part is, and thanks God for that most of those systems, they were not connected to internet or any other part of the network. So till such time it was fine because the traffic is not going out. The moment we started connecting those OT systems to IT for various needs, either because we want exchange of data, we want, we are building certain AI ML programs, we are trying to optimize certain things for which the data has to flow into IT, and in some cases back also, though, I mean, we know this is a very dangerous subject and people always say IT data should not go into OT, but believe me, this is an unavoidable thing. There will be multiple cases where you will see that IT information is going back into OT, maybe because of the closed looping or because of many other things for which you have to pass on the instruction to OT. But anyways, so the point is, these kind of challenges started coming and suddenly IT people were involved into that. Market was not very mature. There are not many products and suddenly we were also confused how to handle this. But what I am seeing from my experience is, like the things which I talked about, even we start doing the basics parts, the micro-segmentation part, hardening of even those devices, changing the IP address, putting a VLAN onto them, changing their default IP addresses, blocking the USBs and asking licensors to give the license installed on the machine rather than giving a USB. That itself can take care of a good amount of security. When we talk about OT security, the problem which I am seeing is everybody start looking at some kind of marvelous solution which can take care of the problem on its own. No solution exists which can take care of the problem. And we all know IT is a different ballgame altogether because there is so much of dependence on the machines and the supplier of those machines, the OEM, the protocol on which they operate. And one more problem is here the priority is different. In case of IT, our priority was to run IT systems. In case of OT systems, the priority is not to run IT systems. Priority is to run the plant. And there the reliability guy and the people O&M guy, they suddenly, they take the calls. You cannot take the call. You can advise them, you can guide them, but they take the call. So it's a difficult story. And but in some organization, the onus is on IT guys. It's not that we cannot do, but of course there is a lot of dependence on the OT people, a lot of sensitization, a lot of education required to be imparted to them. We can support them, we can make a program which govern this entire OT security, paraphernalia, etc. But all alone IT guys can do it, I mean, that's not the situation, and we are also struggling on that part. So just a small bit, then possibly I can add something more later. Thank you.
Thank you, Vimal. I'll now request Shiva to share his thoughts on the subject.
Yeah, thank you, Alok sir. Coming from the manufacturing background, and I'm just taking the reference of Vimal sir's point, the OT people's major priority is to run the plant. So they are concerned about incident identification or incident response and all. It's a second priority only. The one of the major thing what I'm just saying is identifying something is happening itself. We'll be coming to know maybe after some time only. So that is one of the major thing. And the integration of IT and OT brings more business value, right? So when we are integrating the IT to the OT, what all the threats we are facing it, right from the ransomware to all other, the entire band of the IT threats is now exposed to OT. But the advancements what we are doing it in IT, in terms of obsolescence management, in terms of patching, in terms of all other aspects, are we having the same kind of pace in OT if you see? It's a point of question only. So to answer to your point is, yes, there are all the IT related threats are now is extended to the OT, whereas the preparedness, yes, it's a long way to go.
Shaleen, how is it like in the power energy sector?
So, from the IT OT convergence, there's a lot of data exchanging happening between the enterprise and the OT, and a lot of data traversing, moving to cloud, and is being happening, which is leading to the threats in the OT security in the OT environment. Now, there are four factors. Primarily, there are four factors. Number one is the access management. Number two, legacy. Number three, awareness and training of the people and the employees. And number four is incident management. So when we talk about access management, there are devices who are structured or maybe stored with the factory settings. So a password change of the devices is a must, and access policy of these devices is a must. There should be an application which should be like we have NMS in the IT. There are so many applications in the IT sector, but yes, there should be something in the OT as well, so that an access management can be checked. Number two, training and awareness. Yes, there is a huge training and awareness requirement for the OT sector, wherein some awareness should be taken care at how to create, how to improvise the security and access management of the devices. Three is that we should have a robust cyber security or the crisis management plan for the OT sector. IT, there are a lot of, if we talk about servers, PCs, machines, there is a lot of spares available. SLAs are available. But do we have any SLAs available? Do we have any spares available for the OT? We need to, the industry needs to talk about this. Number four is incident. Yeah, these are the 4 points that I would take about. Thanks.
Baidyanath, your opening thoughts?
Yeah, I think, Alokji, this is very pertinent question when we talk about the IT-OT integration, right? So, I think if you see in last 5 years, the way we are talking about Industry 4.0 and lately Industry 5.0, everybody is talking about smart manufacturing. And that's why a lot of, you can say that issues and concerns are discussed and how we should be navigating in this modern threat landscape. That is something which is the need of the hour. So, if you talk about the important challenges, so what I would like to highlight, the first and foremost is the convergence of the IT and OT system itself. It is something which is threatening to the organization, because IT-like threats are now very common to the OT segment, right? You talk about malware, you talk about phishing related incidents. So these things are something which is very prevalent now. The second important thing is related to the targeted specific attacks, right? So we have seen in last 4-5 years a lot of disruptions happening worldwide where OT specific malware, you name anyone, Black Energy, Triton, or Stuxnet. So these things are something we need to understand how these identified vulnerabilities need to be mitigated well in time so that OT focused malware, you can take control of that. And the third important factor what I would like to highlight is the flat network architecture. So that is something which is a big concern in most of the OT segments. If you talk about most of the manufacturing segment or any sector where OT setup is there, they are mostly thought as an isolated, air-gapped environment. Now the teams are connecting them, and the biggest challenge I can say that there is a lack of camaraderie between IT and OT teams. OT team talk in a different language and IT team want to push all those settings. So deploy EDR on engineering workstation. Is it going to be that much simple? No. So that integration, that camaraderie need to be built. The OT team need to be geared up to make them understand the challenges and risks involved in the OT space. And then a holistic approach in terms of risk management, what all solutions are required. The biggest challenge, if you talk about, if someone has done practically implementation of the OT setup, so a vendor having two network architecture for two different set of meals or setup, they are using the same subnet at both the places. When you are going to converge both the networks, you will not be able to do, because the moment you are going to converge, there will be IP conflict. So a lot of challenges, lot of practical insights are there. We will keep on discussing as the panel progresses. Yeah.
In fact, that's a very interesting point that you touched upon and brought out by other panelists also. Traditionally, OT has been the domain of the instrumentation control. IT has been in existence since almost about 4 decades already, brought out. And there too, information technology and communication technology were two different domains. So now we are witnessing an era where information technology, communication technology, and operational technology of 3 different domains getting converged. Initially first to converge, it became ICT. Now you have OT converging, so I don't know, it is ICOT, I don't know what is the new work which is going to come in. Now this convergence in itself actually throws a lot of challenge with respect to both its management and capacity development, capacity building. You can no longer say that I am a communication man or an IT man or an OT man. You have to have the entire length and breadth of all 3 verticals now. Also, this realization is dawning on governments now. Earlier, since it was only purpose built and main focus was business continuity, nobody was looking at it. There has been a push from IT, right or wrong, whichever way one may like to look at it, towards kind of enforcing the same set of security protocols that are applicable for IT towards OT, and where the challenges is what you have highlighted. The government awakening in this context, you have the National Cybersecurity Coordinator coming in, you have the NCII, PC, and then the sectoral regulators. I would now want you to share your thoughts on what your respective initiatives your respective sectoral regulators are taking, and how are you complying with them. At the same time, since I have talked about the convergence part of it, which standards do you adhere to, especially when you are integrating the 62443 or the ISO of 27001 standard? How do you manage that? So again, start with you, Vimal.
Thank you, Alok. See, honestly, we as a company follow ISO standards, so we are certified on 27001, 20000, 22013. And that is why we continued with 62443. We find that standard is a very robust standard for setting up your OT security stuff. And I don't know how many people have done it, but I think it will really make sense to have a documented OT security policy also. You are only saying I am compliant to ISO. First of all, nobody is compliant to 62443. But you say I follow 62443, that is not adequate. And you will have one direct benefit is the moment you have a policy, there has to be a follower of that policy. Either it will be you or the OT security team, but at least there will be somebody. Second thing what we did is, we operate a refinery, we operate a petrochemical plant, we operate a ethanol plant, biofuels. So what we did is, and we operate a huge pipeline also from Gujarat to Punjab, 1025 kilometer pipeline. Honestly speaking, it took a lot of efforts internally to convince people, because everybody in the senior leadership always feels IT people are the best people to handle this job. So it took a great amount of time to convince them, sir, we are here for governance, for co-working, but we cannot take the ownership because this subject does not belong to me at all. It took me almost a year's time to convince. And end of this exercise, I was successful in appointing, like Alok said, in most of the company, instrumentation heads of these 3 units as the OT security managers. So now you understand what I'm trying to say is there is a policy documented which has to be followed, and there will be otherwise audit every year. And then there is an owner of that policy. The owner of the policy is now, the executor of the policy is OT security team, which are OT security managers appointed. So that is one thing. Coming to the regulatory side, this is a very interesting thing, and I think these regulators can do a great job over there. They are already doing. We deal with certain, we deal with NCI IPC. They have come out with some good things. And our ministry per se is also very active onto this. Ministry conducts a meeting on a quarterly basis of all the concerned CISOs of every oil company. And they give a lot of directions. And by the way, this I4C people is also participating in that. IB guys are also participating in that. MHA guys also participate in that. So there are multiple authorities who participate in these meetings. And a person of the JS or director level person is the appointed CISO for the ministry. So that means that is the amount of focus I am seeing, and I am very, very happy to say that this is really encouraging. And there is a quarterly meeting. Every CISO is asked about what has been done in that particular area, in case there is something which has to be followed. That is one part of it. Second part of it, what I was very happy to see, because most of the time when we see at regulators, we always see they just ask information. They never help you out. But 2 incidents I see. One of our industry peers member, the CISO of that, 2:30 in the night, he got a call. And he said, he was told, there is something fishy we are seeing in your setup. Please have a look at that. So obviously they enhanced their surveillance, etc. They found something and they fixed it up. In our own environment also, few months back, we got a letter from I4C that we are seeing certain Chinese devices in your setup which are seemingly sending data to China. And we were wondering where is this, So of course we never bought, they mentioned a make also. We never bought that make. Later after investigation, we realized one of the suppliers is in turn using that device and rebranding and selling it to us. We did that assessment, we got it VAPT done through a third party KPMG, and we really found there were a lot of malicious things. So that is a kind of, and it was really amazing. I never thought they are going to that extent of identifying the vulnerabilities and trying to protect this, but they can play a bigger role. In OT industry per se, you have some big names like Emerson, Yokogawa, Honeywell, those kinds, Schneider, those kind of, I'm not saying those companies are bad. I don't mean to say that at all. Only thing is, there is a lack of standardization. There is a lack of gradation. Is it that regulators can come out with, in case they have to sell in India, there is a certain level of the upgradation they have to make available to every client. They have to follow certain protocols, standardize those and say you must follow those protocols, etc. I think that is one area where regulators actually can play a very big role, and then obviously coming out with a information sharing mechanism, which I said in being done in an informal manner. As of now, I don't think they have a very robust integrated IT system for that. They are trying to do that, but I think that will further help in further dissipation of any such kind of information about malicious things to all the industry members. I think this is my take on that.
Thank you, Vimal. Very interesting insights. In fact, you touch upon few raw nerves. I always call it the stranglehold of few OEMs on the OT Indian product or even MNC product, the second part of it. But I have very strong reservation with respect to this status-based appointment of CISOs. I call them ornamental CISOs because if they do not have the understanding of the business, just putting them there for compliance doesn't help anything. So there has to be some kind of a capacity alignment at least for the CISO, that he should at least understand the risk and he can take the necessary actions, not necessarily flag for people to So,
Absolutely, Alok, you said it. Honestly, after all these appointments, we made them go through OT security program, the whole standard of 62443, what kind of solutions is available, and mostly in every plant after the construction is over, or the unit construction is over, we get it. IT security assessment we get done. So that is maybe you can say a starting point for them to build on the security part. And of course, I mean, like I said in the beginning also, IT guys can never run from them, because end of the day, the management always looks at us. They say these guys don't know, please support them, watch them, whatever, compliment them, whatever way you can do it.
so Shiva, when I come to you, in addition to the role that regulator is playing in your sector, I would also want you to touch upon, we have this framework, NIST framework, which broadly we are trying to put towards the OT also, which you say identify, protect, detect, respond and recover. Now, in this also we have these verticals of being proactive, the defense strategy per se, then being proactive, and then the incident response piece. So one of these pieces, maybe the defense strategy portion, you can take on to address that with respect to this, how OT defense strategy can be aligned, in addition to the question that I initially put, that how regulators are and how you are complying with the regulatory environment.
It's a very interesting question, Alok sir. Now, I'm taking again a reference from Vimal sir. The adoption of these kind of regulatory frameworks by the operation team is always one of the big challenge what the IT team will always used to do it. Right from going for a proper backup policy deployment on the field and making them to adhere to that particular policy is one such example what we can just take it. And here, the OT team's understanding on these kind of policies as well as the risk involved if this kind of policy deployment is not in place, what all the risk will come. So that is one of the major gap what any company is supposed to focus on, and a continuous skill enhancement is one of the thing. And if you see in earlier days of, for backup and recovery, the people used to take the ghost image backup of the things. So even some incident is happening and that particular machine is malfunctioning. Why it is malfunctioning and all, instead of going for the RCA, the first priority is to take the golden image backup, again restore it. That's it. So that is the approach normally what the people used to do it in the OT. Now the practice is slowly getting changed. Okay, yes, restoring the normalcy is one of the priority, but at the same time, go for the deep. Why this particular thing failed? And what is the RCA for that? So such kind of thing is started playing with the help of this kind of frameworks.
Thank you. I will now come to you, Shaleen. Maybe you can touch upon, apart from, again, as I said, your sectoral portion, either the proactive part or the incident response part, whichever you feel okay with. The rest I'll push over to Baidyanath.
Sure. First, we'll start with how the frameworks and the regulatory has helped the power sector. So, Central Electricity Authority has come up with the cybersecurity framework guidelines for the power sector, bringing everybody, generation, transmission, distribution, and partners associated with them under one umbrella. So, this is a framework which has been given at some guidelines so that everybody can follow. Number two is forming a steering committee meeting, assigning a CISO and a deputy CISO from the OT, so that both IT and OT can come together, come as a team, work towards the organization and form a bridge between IT and OT. Then NCIPC has been sharing a lot of advisories pertaining to the power sector, which is a proactive, and they have also deployed honeypots in the critical sector so that we can get proactive advisories and we can bridge upon. So I remember 2 years back, G20 was one of an event wherein this was the first time that the government of India has used the private distribution as the primary source of power. Until now, the gensets were used as the primary source of, so that was a big achievement. I remember that we had for 3 days, we had blocked around maybe 8,000 IPs and advisories given by NCIPC so that we can have a smooth transition of G20 event. And So when we talk about proactive AI and ML, this would give an insight of real-time inventory of of both IT and OT assets, and we can take care of vulnerabilities, anomalies, threat detection. This is something that would be a great help to us, and for the entire IT and OT and the power sector. Number two is awareness. So and standardization. So we as I think. CA has come up with a norm, and and also the IT Act 2000 talks about that all critical sectors should be certified for ISO 27001. So we are certified for 27001, and there is a new standard 27019, which is talks about cyber security for utilities, discom utilities. So wherein the 27001 comes up as a basic framework. So we have recently completed, migrated from 2013 to 2022 version, and we would be going for 27019, which is a framework for. And apart from that, we keep doing trainings for ISO 62443 standards for our OT team. So this is the awareness and which we keep doing for our power sector.
Thank you. In fact, among the 9 pillars of critical...
One more thing, yes. One of the important things that we have done is, I strongly believe in creating a strong cyber crisis management plan, wherein I think all walks, all departments have come together and form up a very robust cyber security plan, mitigation plan, wherein we should have a good response team and a mitigation team.
Thank you. In fact, the 9 industry or sectors which have been identified as critical, I see 2 regulators have been very proactive. One is the CERC and the second one is the BFSI sector. I have not seen much activity happening with respect to the other regulators as much as one would like to see. But again, now moving on to Baidyanath, as I said, incident response is something which Shaleen decided to leave it to you. So we have the CCMPs in place, almost everyone, all critical infrastructure has a CCMP in place. But at least when I was in the army, we used to say, you practice what has to be done. So how do you practice incident response in an OT sector is something that I would want you to develop on. You have the CCMP document, but how do you ensure that people are in touch with what is to be done and how it is to be done? Thank you.
I think, exactly. So this is something which is very pertinent question when we are talking about OT specific challenges and how to navigate through the landscape. So I would like to start with a very interesting fact. If you see in a decade, Alok ji, so whatever the investments organizations are doing, they are building the ecosystem in terms of preventive, detective, mitigation controls, incident response. Then also there is a compound annual growth rate of 4% in average cost of data breach. So if you talk about 2013, it was around $3 million. Now it has reached to $4.8 million. So something we are not doing good, okay? In terms of holistic risk management, in terms of how the cyber threat landscape, how to understand your radius blast, and how to mitigate and implement the right set of controls, understanding your business context. So that is something which is very much important for any business to understand their context and then to implement the solutions. Otherwise, there will be just alert fatigues, no practical solution, and finally there will be breaches which will keep on happening. So so what we have adopted a holistic approach by understanding the ISO systems. So you talk about ISO 27001, NIST framework, and on top of that, obviously, OT specific act, which we are talking about 62443. So in all conjugation, so we have created our 5-year roadmap. And accordingly, we have invested into technologies, not looking into IT and OT as a siloed approach. Whether you talk about zero trust access, how to navigate and how to expand that to even OT systems also. So 3 important things I would like to highlight. Every organization has to look into that. It's something is, you have to come with the strong micro segmentation, network segmentation, whatever you call it. Start with network segmentation and then do the micro segmentation. The second is continuous authentication process. So it's not about authenticating at one moment and later on you are not doing the continuous verification of the verified assets also. And the third important thing is the asset discovery in OT segment. So what we are looking into, so we are focusing on building the preventive controls by making the industrial DMG layer, so which we call as industrial security. So level 3.5 technically, that is the need of the hour in the industry setup. That good design is required. On top of that, you have to integrate with a SOC when you are talking about incident response. So this is very interesting topic. So the feeds like sectoral feeds or NCIAPC coming from your certs, right? So those feeds are there in your SOC. Now you have your own threat intel as part of the SOC also. So those threat intels are working in a conjugated manner. Now, whenever there is an incident, for example, from any of the OT systems or HMI or PLC or SCADA system, if there is an outbound connection going to a command and control systems to do some sort of malicious activity, immediately a SOAR playbook has to be triggered. So SOAR or incident response in automated manner should not be only restricted to IT systems. That is something where you have to build threat intelligence related specific use cases in SOAR. So SOAR is not about only identifying the anomalies pattern and building use cases on top of that, but how you are integrating your threat intelligence and building use cases on top of that. So we are heavily investing into that, understanding the nature of the threat in the OT, IT in conjugation, and then coming up with those use cases where we can detect directly on all those OT related gateways. So incident response has to play a major role, and how you can reduce on the MTD and MTDR, which is mean time to detect and mean time to respond, because in manufacturing, unlike IT systems, so you can't think about only the attacks will be there in the IT. Obviously, anything, because this convergence is already done. We have invested into a lot of technologies to make the complete digital manufacturing systems, right? Because business demands that, and when you are integrating that, a lot of threats are there in the OT system. So incident response is equally critical now, and your incident response playbooks, right, sir said the policy, OT specific policy is the need of the hour. And in those policies, mitigation related controls, for example, if you identified that there are legacy systems which you can't do patching because they are fragile systems, you can't patch, unlike IT systems, sorry. So what we need to do then, you have to adopt strong defenses in terms of network segmentation, then application whitelisting, a lot of technical controls we just can talk on for hours, but yes, these are something which is very pertinent, and incident response has to be completely geared up in automated manner, taking into consideration the threat intel related use cases, whether it is coming from your direct SOC vendor. For example, if you have Splunk, you have Palo Alto, Cortex, whatever. So you have subscribed to their feeds also, but these sectoral feeds and the National Cybersecurity Coordinator and whatever the feeds coming from these government regulators, so those all have to be part of that, and then you build use cases on top of that. That's something which is very important. And if the things are going to be mitigated in automated fashion, those all incidents or mitigations have to be analyzed by OT team also.
Thank you, Baidyanath, for sharing your insights on this. Since, as I said in my opening remarks, OT is very contextual, OT is specific, varies from business to business. One thing that at least maybe it is because of the difference in the businesses that we are there, I am slightly at variance with the thought process of getting into the SOAR mode for OT. Because you do not know what triggers the automated orchestration portion and what impact it has on the business. Given that it is being triggered through a playbook and especially anomaly.
Yeah, but at least to start with the IOCs. not by blocking any or isolating the segment, but a mindset has to be changed. That at least you know that IOCs which is making a connection to any server which belongs to known deadly ransomware, particularly to the OT segment like Triton and black energy related servers. You know that, then you can at least block at the OT gateways.
Outbound connection requests, etc. Those can be blocked. Absolutely wonderful. Now I'll slightly, again, my focus remains on the push of IT-related technologies towards OT and the possibility of exploiting them in OT. But before I actually come to them, another interesting question that I often ask myself is, when do you do a tech refresh of OT? I have come across applications, PLCs, etc. So hardened Windows 3, hardened Windows XP, when they are end of life, how does one manage this OEM declared obsolete operating systems and hardened and running at the core of our present day OT infra? And given the challenges that all these EDRs of the day, AI solutions of the day cannot be pushed onto them. So any one panelist, because not one may have dealt with this, any one panelist who wants to take on this question of how do you deal with this challenge of hardened, obsolete OSs and next generation technologies that are being promoted to be used on them?
Sure, I'll take this question first. So we started a program called as KYA, Know Your Assets. So under which we conducted an audit and a vulnerability assessment of IT and OT when we identified the legacy assets. Which assets are, when we talk about legacy, it means these assets are being declared as a legacy by OEMs and not supported. There is no AMC support available as well. So then we we identified, some of the plans like, can we do a network segmentation? Is there a patch and a hardening available of these assets or not? How we can isolate these assets? And moreover, most important part is, what is the plan to replace these assets? Because there is, a financial aspect involved in this. We cannot replace the entire bunch in one go. That has to be planned in, years. So that's very important. So these are the few things that we had done. And most important part is that how to deal these assets in case of an incident. So the cyber crisis management plan should touch upon how to deal with such assets in case of an incident, and how people should know how to react it. So there should be an awareness plan and continuous awareness plan on how to deal with such assets.
Thank you, Shaleen. And now I'll come to the adoption of next generation technologies into OT. So I'll first come to you, Vimal. Zero trust is the buzz of the day. So how do we adopt zero trust in OT? And what are your thoughts on it?
Zero trust in OT, it seems to be a good concept, but I see a lot of challenges over there. And as I said in the beginning also, all the OT systems are to help the plant run. So obviously this is not a consideration for them. You say, I will not trust anything unless, I put my things in place. No business will agree for that. That is one thing. Second thing is, obviously for zero trust, you need to deploy a lot many solutions. There are many solutions in OT environment we are seeing which are very delay sensitive. So the more solutions mean there can be a delay. For example, let us say one of my optimizer returns on a minute basis and it passes on the parameters to the refinery. So in case there are, some delays because of this whole arrangement, then you understand the performance of the plant will also be impacted, because of which there can be a lot of concerns from the operating team as well. So some of the concerns I see, but I think more than that, first I think we need to set up the basic things in place. A vendor comes, he puts some system in place, like just now we were talking about OT guys never thought of upgrading those systems until unless the vendor comes and raise their hand and say, for example, somebody running a Windows XP, I cannot support it any further. Otherwise, I mean, in our case also, there may be certain things which are running since 2015-16. We never thought of upgrading. Now the sensitization has gone up, where we are realizing, apart from functionality, there are a lot of cybersecurity things which also has to be patched up. So all these things has to be taken care of. So even before Zero Trust, in case we can take care of other stuff like segmentation, setting up that trivial configuration which is done in the system, complete isolation of IT from OT and putting up 2-layer of firewall at both the ends just to make sure only the allowed traffic flows across these two networks. I think this can also help in building up a robust OT security. One more thing which I have been seeing in OT security is there are many places where you want support from outsiders. There is a remote assistance system which is available. And some of those remote assistance system completely bypasses your IT system. So the point I'm trying to say is, even before jumping onto Zero Trust, possibly this will take some more time to get evaluated and established. Setting up these basic IT security disciplines, understanding first of all. I think, like it is said, diagnosis done is half treatment done. In case we are able to identify all those things, then that itself is a big win for us, and then getting them fixed one by one, I think can to a great extent solve your OT security. And obviously not to expose it to internet unless you are very sure of that this is the only thing is, yes, we know there are a lot many tools which are available directly on the cloud, because of which we have to open that route. But avoiding it to the extent possible can further help in strengthening your OT security till the time you have other paraphernalia in place. This is my take on that.
Thank you, Vimal. Vimal said cloud. So Shiva, adoption of cloud in OT technologies.
Cloud will definitely bring a lot more advantages in terms of it's scalable, and it's a centralized monitoring, and easy for secure remote kind of thing. But still, the core OT engine will still run in this respective sites only, because that is very close to the next to the machineries. And the adoption of the cloud now in my various projects also, we are majorly looking for the data lake building kind of applications where the reporting can be directly done from the things, and let the OT engine and the OT layer to do the work to talk to the machines only. And all the reporting and MAS layer is, let's move to the cloud. So that one way the cloud is helping really a lot. And establishing the secured remote connectivity also, there are some assignments we are just evaluating on that. So as a technology, it brings support in terms of the scalable infrastructure, as well as it's provide a centralized dashboarding kind of thing even for the OT related applications also. But from an operations point of view, it's yet to come.
Thank you, Shiva. I'll skip straight to Baidyanath. Cyber ranges, digital twins, very quick 1-minute response on what are their prospects in OT security.
Of course, at least I can see a huge potential for digital twins. But yes, before coming to that, quickly I want to add, because I completely second and I strongly believe that Zero Trust strategy can't be completely replicated to the OT environment, but there is a practical way to do, starting from the IT setup itself. When you have OT Zero Trust strategy coupled with strong identity and access management, most of the problem is already solved. Because how any attack propagates, if you understand the TTPs of as per the MITRE also, the attackers try to get a foothold of any of the IT systems, and then they see what east-west traffic and what connections are open to the OT systems, right? And how they can propagate directly. Every time they don't jump to the OT system directly. Like the basic things which we can do in OT setup itself, like AnyDesk and all those remote software which are directly connecting without connecting through the IT layers itself. So if you have the strong layer of the firewalls and even packet detection capabilities in terms of IPS and next gen of industrial firewalls, 2 layers of firewalls implemented well across. And then in IT itself, you have adopted the Zero Trust strategy. Slowly, because if you can see the edge computing related devices are there. Adoption of edge computing is more and more in OT. You can't implement a strong IAM there, because those all will not support the cryptographic controls, and you will not be able to do something of passwordless or MFA implementation. So these things are practical challenges there, but at least pushing from the IT side and then slowly making the defense there, it can help. Now coming to the technologies like digital twins and all, of course you can simulate that. At least for preventing maintenance, we have started not using, but started working with the vendors to understand how it can be effective in manufacturing use cases. Still this space is evolving, I must say. It will take some time, but yes, there are pertinent use cases, at least for digital twins.
Thank you, Baidyanath.
Yeah.
Shaleen, artificial intelligence, machine learning.
So AI/ML is, I'd say, it's talk of the town. Every solution is coming up with, something other in AI/ML. So when it comes to power sector or distribution sector, be it IT or OT, such technologies, such solutions help in giving a real-time information about the asset inventory. IT, yes, due to some protocol and new generation devices, it is very much available, but there are solutions which are coming up which can give a real-time information about the OT as well. When you have the real-time information about the OT, then it also relates to the anomaly and the threat detection, vulnerabilities associated with the assets, how we can do a patch management of these assets. So these are some of the 4 things which are basic things that we look forward for with the use of AI and ML.
Thank you. Before we wind up, one question that is all constantly plaguing everybody's mind is who should own the OT security bit, or even for that matter, in the consolidated space portion, the ICOT security in charge. Who should be owning that? Quick one-word answers from each one of you. So, Vimal.
I think I already said this. In our case, instrumentation heads have responsibility, but I think more than that, what I'm trying to say, it is most of the organization, and that is what also we have also done. There is a governing framework. In the governing framework, IT is obviously there because we have been asked to play that guiding role in terms of evaluation of those technologies and the impact on the other systems. But to answer the question, as far as the responsibility is concerned, the responsibility lies with the instrumentation heads of each of the plant.
Thank you. Shiva. I'll request one word.
Accountability is with the OT, and IT can be the guiding team.
Shaleen.
So it has to be a joint team, a governance team has to be formed, or I can say amalgamation of both IT and OT.
Baidyanath.
Yeah, I firmly believe amalgamation of the team. It has to be headed by CISO, because security is something instrumentation head can't understand completely. But yes, joint responsibility, they have to be part of the change management. Any change management happening in OT, instrumentation head, that's why I told camaraderie is very important between IT and OT team. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you to all my panelists for the wonderful insights on the subject, and for all of you for being a wonderful audience. Time is up. Do we have time for one quick question if they have?
Yes, we can have questions from the audience. If anybody would like to ask any question, the floor is open for that. You can let me know, we'll bring the mic for you. You can raise your hand. Yeah, please.
Thank you for the panelists to sharing such, I think, thought-provoking ideas on the podium. I'd like to just ask one thing. Zero Trust have been touched by many of the panelists. One thing I'd like to ask, did we have seen actual implementation in Indian territory so far, anywhere in your knowledge, where Zero Trust have been adopted by OT environment?
My answer is no, and some of my panelists aired their view that it's a challenge to implement. So my answer is no, I haven't come across anyone.
Just want to add, so even the solutions are not that evolved for OT completely to adopt, because see, it's not about the zero trust is not directly a silver bullet. You employ one solution and it is fixed, right? It is a framework, it is a strategy, and along with that you have to deploy a lot of tools and technology to enable. For example, if a solution like zero trust access is only deployed, it will not solve. You need to have a strong identity and governance layer. You need to have a strong identity access management control. So in IT, yes, there are ways to implement that, but for OT, it's not only the solution can help, because legacy systems need to be upgraded also. They have to come with those controls where those controls they can adopt in terms of this zero trust strategy.
Like to add to Baidyanath, you have a very interesting neighborhood who can contribute more to it. But if you look at OT, the game becomes slightly more difficult. The identity becomes more important, especially zero trust. It is M2M communications. It is no longer just identity of individuals operating. So it becomes M2M zero trust. So that level it will go. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have a second part of the same question to understand the first situation, to carry on with my second part. Do you feel that in case right now, if you feel the challenges are there in the implementation side, the adoption in the OT for the OT security standard should be more paramount, like 62443, going for certification rather than only going for assessments, which organization adopted an approach from last 4 or 5 years, getting once a year, being assessed for the risk, but rather than moving toward the certifying their whole plant or their particular system so that it complies once and rather than repeating the process multiple times. Any thoughts from the panelists on the same idea?
To answer your question, disclaimer, views expressed are personal, do not in any way reflect
it's my own personal
views
question.
of my organization, either served today or in past at any point in time.
Definitely. Idea here is to understand the future trend.
I think standards are good, but the OEM ecosystem has such a stranglehold and the OT life has such a long length. Equipment which was installed 30 years back, 40 years, when even cybersecurity was barely in sight of many people. How do you enforce 62443 and 27001 standards on such equipment? The compute is absent, the memory is absent. Process portion you can probably touch. Technology portion is outside your control. People you can sensitize. So I don't think we are there as yet. One of the questions that I put to one of our panelists was, when do you do a tech refresh? And when I do a next tech refresh, that tech refresh should be so forward looking that it at least caters for next 2 decades, 3 decades. If I'm doing a tech refresh today, now what the next question challenge associated with it is, what is the tech life cycle? OT tech life cycle is 2 decades, 3 decades. Supporting technologies, especially in the IT and the standards that we are, they are changing every day. The threat landscape is changing every day. So you have 62443 today, it is already under revision. 62543 is what is likely to come by next year. And the standards are evolving. 27001 is not very long back. You're 27019 now. So every kind of 42001 is in place. So the compliance burden is increasing astronomically without the tech actually supporting it. So I don't know how people are going to handle it.
So if I may add, today if you go to market and buy a laptop with Windows 7 or Windows XP, you would not get it. So the day is not far that you would see some baselining in OT as well. In coming years, you would see some baselining. So the day when you see that yes, some equipment or maybe a device which is not compliant is not available off the shelf, I think that would answer the question.
I think I will also add one thing. OEMs also play a very important role there. In fact, we never questioned OEM. What kind of upgradability do they support? How long, how fast they will be upgrading it? What all will be required? We never asking this question. We should start asking this question. In all my contracts, I see there are very few contracts where the coverage of all upgrades is covered, or the declaration of the vulnerability and the support at the life is covered. I think we should start making this as a part of my standard tendering process. Ask them, give me a support for at least these many years, declare vulnerabilities, and that is what I said. Regulator can also play an important role over there. Every OEM should be asked, especially all the infrastructure which is related to the national critical infrastructure, all those IT systems. There the regulator should force them to declare all the identified vulnerabilities, like we do have CV database. There should be a database of all such vulnerabilities so that people can actually look at that and take some corrective actions.
As long as the OEM is looking at a captive business model for 3 to 4 decades, is not going to happen. Either you push the owners of the burden on the OEM that, okay, now the threat landscape has changed. Your equipment or solutions should also have a 5 to 7 year life, and the cost of the solution has to come down proportionately. The proprietary and the captivity in the game necessitates a change in business model of the OEM. As long as that exists, and it is a global problem, global regulators have to unite against it. Thank you.